The loony left is using LGBTQ+, basically the alphabet, to groom and indoctrinate kids into victim groups, so they can tell them that everyone who is not in that group is oppressing that particular group, and CRT to indoctrinate them to be good little communists. If you don't believe me, they're already talking about arresting people for using speech they don't like.
Decide later what I'm going to say now that I'm got to prepare my remarks since I'm early. So I represent We the County Macomb. We're a community-based organization that is, our mission is to return the authority to govern back to the local communities, which is you guys. You have the power and the authority to govern, and we expect you to stand in the gap for the kids. At the last meeting, I spoke about, I should say, one of you responded when I asked, why do you want to protect these books? Why is it so important for you to keep them in the library? Because by choosing to keep them in, or by choosing to not take them out, you're choosing to keep them in. And one of you responded that you were protecting or looking out for those vulnerable kids who might have been sexually abused, or those books might help. I question your qualifications to decide that re-victimizing a sexual abuse survivor by having those books available to them, what qualifies you, number one, to decide that? But where do you have the right to look out for those couple of children at the expense of the rest of them? Right. You are tasked with the responsibility of a lot of kids. It isn't your job, and you are not qualified to say, we're going to look out for that one sexual abuse survivor that book may help. You have the responsibility to stand in the gap for these kids. You don't have to go by what the state tells you to do. You are a lower authority, and you have that power. To the other lady's point, Superintendent, you have every power to remove these books. Right. Robert asked, remove them while the process is being played out. Why is that such a big deal? What do you have to lose by saying, get them out and we'll review them?
Thank you.
You're choosing to leave them in.
You know you're in a cult if 1. You believe you are what your imagination says you are. Delusional, characterized by or holding false beliefs or judgments about external reality that are held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary, typically as a symptom of a mental condition. You know you're in a cult if 6. You believe reality isn't real. Delusional, characterized by or holding false beliefs or judgments about external reality that are held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary, typically as a symptom of a mental condition. You know you're in a cult if 10. Thanks to Jamie Lee Curtis, who didn't know how many Oscars she'd won, them can't count. You know you're in a cult if 11. You will cry in protest to take a real black woman off a syrup bottle and a Quaker off a box of oats named Quaker Oats, only to put a fake white woman on a beer can. All while saying, I can't believe they're so upset over a beer can. Bud Light parent Anheuser-Busch's stock has lost $27 billion over Dylan Mulvaney. You know you're in a cult if 13. If you get triggered because someone doesn't think you're special because you were born into one of the CRT-approved victim groups, they believe deeds and personal responsibility warrant pride. You know you're in a cult if 18. Lost your shit over To Kill a Mockingbird and Huckleberry Finn but are screaming about banning books with gay sex and masturbation in school libraries. You know you're in a cult if 20. Will lie even with irrefutable evidence. You know you're in a cult if 21. Being so filled with hate, you will groom, mutilate, and murder your own children, all while calling your opposition fascists. You know you're in a cult if 22. Believes that out of 7 billion people on the planet, white, straight, males are somehow oppressing everyone else. You know you're in a cult if 23. Will lose your shit when someone points out that you're not oppressed, you're just stupid. You know you're in a cult if 25. Will refer to a biology book as right-wing propaganda. You know you're in a cult if. 26. Will lose your shit if someone actually uses proper English instead of your made-up pronouns. You know you're in a cult if. 32. Are the same people who say you can't indoctrinate kids to be gay with a book or a drag show, but continually accuse the church of doing that very thing. Although religion isn't taught in schools, and you're not forced to go to church. You know you're in a cult if. 33. When someone is simply talking science and common sense, you will try to bring religion into it. Well, you know the church. Well then, don't go to church. It's not against the law. Not going to school is. You know you're in a cult if. 34. Will use unrelated behavior to justify their sick, grooming behavior. You know you're in a cult if. 39. Will lose your shit when someone says you're in a woke cult, and to prove you're not, you do the things on this list over and over and over. You know you're in a cult if. 40. Will accuse your opposition of that which you are guilty. You know you're in a cult if. 46. Consider chemically castrating a pedophile horrible and inhumane, but chemically castrating a child just dandy.